I was sitting in the common room of the nursing home when a young nurse whispered, "Mr. Collins, your son is here to see you." "But I only have one daughter." And the man who walked in, looked exactly like me when I was 30. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. I am 72 years old. My name is Thomas Collins. For 38 years I taught high school history. Not the kind of history students read and forget, but the kind that sinks into your bones, the stories of ordinary men and women who built something, who sacrificed so the next generation could stand taller. I believed in that. I lived it. I built my house with my own two hands in 1975, the year Evelyn and I married. The land wasn't much then, a sloping patch of dirt on the edge of town with a half-dead oak tree and a creek that flooded every spring. But to us, it was Eden. Evelyn sketched out the kitchen on the back of a napkin, and I promised her it would be exactly as she dreamed, wide windows for sunlight, a farmhouse sink, enough space for Sunday dinners and laughter echoing off the walls. She picked out wallpaper while I laid bricks. She planted roses while I hammered beams. And when the house finally stood, sturdy and proud, we both cried. Years later, when our daughter, Anna, came along, we hung a wooden swing from that half-dead oak tree. It turned out the tree wasn't dying at all, just waiting for a reason to live. Its roots deepened, its branches spread, and for decades, that swing carried every giggle, every scraped knee, every whispered secret of a childhood we cherished. That house wasn't just wood and nails. It was our marriage, our triumphs, our grief, our family. Evelyn's handprints were in the garden stones. Anna's growth marks were still carved into the pantry doorframe. Every corner spoke of us. And yet, according to my daughter, it was too much for me now. It started small, the way these things often do. A gentle suggestion. "Dad, maybe you should think about downsizing. Less space to clean. Less yard to mow. Wouldn't that be easier?" I laughed it off. I still mowed my lawn every Saturday. Still fixed leaky pipes. Still climbed the ladder to change out the storm gutters myself. I wasn't useless. Not yet. But the suggestions kept coming. "Dad, I worry about you on the stairs. What if you fall? Dad, it's dangerous to shovel snow alone. Dad, the taxes on a house this size are ridiculous." At first, she dressed them in the language of care. But little by little, her tone shifted. Her eyes lingered too long on the walls, on the old furniture, on the photographs that had faded in the sun. When her husband joined in, the mask slipped further. He started talking about renovations, and updates, and value. He spoke of my house like it was a property listing. And then came the dinner conversation that still burns in my memory. "Dad," Anna said, cutting into her chicken with surgical precision, "don't you think it's time you stopped rattling around in that big place? Mom's gone. I'm grown. You don't need it anymore." I set down my fork. "Need it? That's my home, Anna. I built it. Your mother made it beautiful. You were raised in it." Her husband smirked over his wine glass. "No one's saying it isn't sentimental. But emotions don't pay for upkeep. You'd be more comfortable somewhere with support. Meals. Medical staff. Activities." He said the word activities like I was already senile, waiting to glue macaroni to paper plates in a daycare for the elderly. I looked at my daughter, searching her face for some sign of the little girl who once ran barefoot through that house, shouting for me to push her higher on the oak tree swing. Instead, I saw calculation. Cold, practical calculation. That night, I went to bed in the same room Evelyn and I had shared for 40 years, listening to the silence settle around me like dust. For the first time, I understood, my daughter wasn't just preparing me for something easier. She was preparing to take what I had built. And within weeks, I would learn exactly how far she was willing to go. It was a Sunday evening in late September when the build-up finally came to a head. Anna had invited me over for dinner at her place. She set the table neatly, her children's toys swept out of sight, candles flickering like it was a holiday. But the air was heavy, like a storm was crouched just outside the window. "Dad," she began, too gently, "we've been talking. We think it's time to consider what's best for you." I narrowed my eyes. "What's best for me?" Her husband cleared his throat, eager to step in. "Thomas, you're 72. You've done so much, but let's be realistic, managing that big house is too much. You shouldn't have to worry about mowing lawns or fixing pipes. You deserve to relax." Relax. The word landed like an insult. I leaned back, crossing my arms. "I do relax. I sit on my porch every evening and watch the oak tree where your kids swing. I walk through the garden your mother planted. That house is not a burden. It is my life." Anna reached across the table, her hand brushing mine with forced tenderness. "Dad, please don't make this harder. Mom's gone. It's just memories now. And memories don't keep you safe. What if something happens? What if you fall? What if you forget?" Forget. The word burned worse than any slap. I pulled my hand back. "Is that what you think I am now? A man who forgets?" She didn't answer. But her husband did. "We already looked into options. Wonderful options. Places where you'd have company, good food, care 24/7. No more loneliness. Doesn't that sound better than rattling around in that empty house?" The room spun around me. Their voices blurred. I wanted to believe it was concern, but I saw it now, the calculation in their eyes, the eagerness in his smirk when he spoke of options. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "You don't get to decide what's best for me." But Anna just sighed. And the way she looked at me, with something between pity and cold determination, made my chest tighten. That was the last dinner I had at her house. 2 weeks later, it happened. She came to pick me up in her SUV, saying she wanted to show me something. I assumed maybe a new park, or her kid's school project. I climbed in without suspicion, clutching the thermos of coffee I'd brought. We drove in silence until the beige walls and iron gates of Brookside Manor rose ahead of us. My stomach dropped. "Anna," I said slowly, "what is this?" She didn't look at me as she pulled into the parking lot. "Dad, please. Just trust me. This is for the best." And then she parked, got out, and opened my door as if she were helping a frail stranger. That was the moment I knew, my daughter hadn't brought me here to visit. She had brought me here to stay. The director greeted us with a clipboard. "Mr. Collins, welcome. We've been expecting you." Expecting me. I turned to Anna, betrayal burning in my chest. She couldn't meet my eyes. I stepped out slowly, the gravel crunching beneath my shoes, and as the gates closed behind me, I felt it like a prison door sealing shut. The first days inside Brookside Manor felt like being erased one layer at a time. The hallways all looked the same, pale beige wallpaper, framed pictures of flowers that had never grown within 100 miles, and carpets that smelled faintly of bleach and boiled cabbage. Every corridor turned into the next until I stopped trying to remember which direction led back to my room. They called it a suite, but it was nothing more than a cell with curtains. A twin bed with stiff sheets that smelled of disinfectant. A dresser too small for the clothes I had brought. A plastic chair bolted to the floor by its own cheapness. The only personal touch was a single drawer where I tucked away Evelyn's photograph, her smile already beginning to look out of place in this sterile tomb. Meals were the same every day, trays of mush, potatoes drowned in gray gravy, vegetables boiled until they lost both color and taste. They called it balanced nutrition. I called it an insult to appetite. The staff were polite in that professional way that meant they didn't care. "How are we feeling today, Mr. Collins?" "Not you. We." Like my identity had been absorbed into a collective of forgotten old bodies. Smiles stretched too wide. Voices pitched too sweet. None of it reached their eyes. The other residents shuffled through the halls like ghosts. Some muttered to themselves. Some sat staring out the windows at nothing. Their eyes carried that same dull glaze, the look of people waiting not for tomorrow, but for the end. Every morning at 8, they wheeled me to activity hour. Sometimes it was bingo. Sometimes coloring books. Once it was stringing beads into necklaces, as if 70 years of living had stripped me of all dignity and left me with the motor skills of a preschooler. When I refused, the staff made notes in their clipboards, glancing at me like I was trouble. Evenings were worse. That was when the silence crept in, heavy and absolute. My daughter didn't call. My grandchildren didn't visit. And the house, my house, the one Evelyn and I had built nail by nail, was now echoing with the sound of someone else's laughter. One night I overheard 2 nurses whispering by the vending machine. "His daughter. She already sent the paperwork. They're renovating his place. Kitchen, bathrooms, the works." "Really? Must be nice to have money for that." "Yeah. I heard the son-in-law's already talking about resale value." Resale value. That's what my life had been reduced to, a listing price on some real estate agent's spreadsheet. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, Evelyn's photograph in my hand, and whispered to her the truth I hadn't said out loud: "They've taken everything, Evie. Everything we built. Even me. But the thing about being erased is that, sometimes, a part of you sharpens in the process." My body might have been trapped in Brookside Manor, but my mind was alive. Burning. Planning. They thought they had buried me here, tucked me away like old furniture in storage. But I wasn't done yet. And I would prove it when the past, a past I didn't even know existed, came walking through the doors. It was a Saturday when Anna finally came to visit. 2 weeks. That's how long it took her to check on the father she had locked away like an old trunk in the attic. She breezed into Brookside Manor wearing designer sunglasses, carrying a handbag that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Her husband trailed behind, already tapping on his phone as if he were conducting business in a boardroom instead of standing in front of his discarded father-in-law. "Dad," Anna said in that syrupy tone that dripped with false concern, "how are we adjusting?" Adjusting. Like this was a college dorm and not a padded waiting room for death. I gestured to the plastic chair in my room. "You're sitting in the throne," I said flatly. She smiled thinly and ignored the jab. "We've been making progress on the house. You'll be so relieved, Dad, no more drafty windows, no more steep stairs. It's really coming along beautifully." Her husband finally looked up, smugness curling at the corners of his mouth. The realtor says once we finish the kitchen, the place could fetch nearly $500,000. It's a great time to sell. Sell. The word landed like a slap. I gripped the armrest of my bed. Sell. That's my house. The one your mother and I built. The one I raised you in. Anna tilted her head, her voice calm, condescending. Dad, you don't need it anymore. You've got a safe place here, meals prepared, staff on call. Isn't that better? We'll make sure you're comfortable. Comfortable. As if comfort could replace dignity. I opened my mouth, ready to say something I might not be able to take back, when a knock came at the door. The nurse poked her head in. Mr. Collins. You have another visitor. Anna frowned. Another visitor? Who? Before anyone could answer, the door opened wider, and in stepped a man I had never seen before. Except I had seen him. Every morning, every evening, for most of my life. In the mirror, 50 years ago. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the same crooked nose that had been broken in a college football game, the same jawline Evelyn used to trace with her finger when she thought I was asleep. But his eyes, God, those eyes, were Evelyn's. Green, sharp, alive. A color I hadn't seen since the day I buried her under the oak tree. He didn't shuffle nervously or glance around like a lost visitor. He walked into that room like he belonged there, like the floor itself recognized him. And then he stopped just a few feet from my bed, meeting my gaze with a calm certainty that froze the air between us. Dad, he said quietly, his voice steady, but carrying something deeper, years of waiting, years of distance collapsing into one word. I finally found you. The room went silent. Even the mechanical hum of the heating unit seemed to falter. I felt my breath catch in my chest, my hand tightening around the armrest as if I needed something to anchor me. Anna blinked, confusion twisting her face into suspicion. Excuse me. Who are you? Her voice pitched too high, brittle, like glass about to shatter. The man's gaze didn't leave mine. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a photograph. The edges were frayed, the colors fading, but the image was unmistakable. Me. In 1973. Smiling at the county fair, a cheap paper hat tilted on my head, and beside me, Evelyn's childhood friend, Claire, her arm looped casually through mine. She had been laughing at something, head tilted toward me like we shared a private joke. I remembered that day, the sticky heat, the scent of fried dough, the reckless joy of a world still unwritten. I had forgotten it for decades. But here it was, alive again in a stranger's hand. The man stepped closer, the photograph trembling slightly in the fluorescent light. He held it out not as an offering, but as a verdict. My name is David, he said. I'm your son. Anna gasped, her manicured hand flying to her mouth. Her husband swore under his breath, muttering something sharp and ugly I didn't catch. And me? I just stared. My chest felt hollow, as if someone had scooped out the air, the years, the certainty of my own history. The world tilted, colors running together, my mind tearing through memories, questions, regrets, 1,000 what-ifs. Was this possible? Had Evelyn known? Had Claire carried this secret for half a century? But beneath the shock, something else flickered inside me, recognition. This man wasn't lying. His face, his voice, his very presence carried a weight that no con artist could forge. Anna found her voice again, sharp with panic. This is insane. Some stranger just walks in here and claims to be your son. Dad, don't listen to him. But I couldn't look at her. My eyes stayed locked on David, because deep inside, I already knew the truth. And in that moment, everything changed. The house wasn't just Anna's to claim anymore. The inheritance wasn't hers to devour. The story wasn't hers to write. The daughter who thought she had buried me alive was about to learn she wasn't the only heir. Anna's shock melted fast into anger. Her face flushed red, and she stepped toward David like a mother lion defending her cubs, except she wasn't protecting, she was cornered. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You can't just walk in here, wave some old picture around, and call yourself family. My father has one child. Me. You're nothing but a fraud trying to take advantage of an old man." David didn't flinch. His eyes never left mine. Calm. Steady. Like he'd prepared for this moment his entire life. "I know the date," he said simply. Anna froze. "What?" "The county fair. August 17, 1973. The night Dad won you a goldfish, Claire." He glanced down at the woman in the photo, was laughing so hard she dropped her cotton candy. "That was the night I was conceived." The details hit me like a hammer. The goldfish. The cotton candy. A moment so small I hadn't thought of it in decades, yet it was true. All of it. Anna sputtered, her voice breaking into a higher pitch. This is insane, Dad. He's making it up. Please, don't listen to him." But she was shaking. Her husband tugged at her sleeve, muttering something about leaving, but she yanked her arm free. "We'll fight this. We'll fight him. Don't think for a second you can just walk in here and take what's ours." She grabbed her bag, snapped her sunglasses back onto her face like a shield, and stormed out. Her husband followed reluctantly, casting one last nervous glance at David as if he already knew the fight wasn't his to win. The door clicked shut behind them. For the first time in weeks, the room was quiet. Not the suffocating silence of Brookside Manor, but something sharper. Expectant. David turned back to me. The mask of calm he'd worn in front of Anna slipped just slightly, and I saw the boy beneath the man, the boy who had spent a lifetime wondering if he'd ever be acknowledged. "Dad," he said again, softer now, almost breaking. "I need you to believe me." I leaned forward in my chair, Evelyn's photograph still clutched in my hand. My voice came out rough, like gravel. "Sit down, son. We have a lot to talk about." David sat down slowly in the plastic chair Anna had just vacated. The contrast was almost comical. My daughter had perched on it like a queen giving orders, while this man sat on it like someone finally finding the seat he'd been waiting for his whole life. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of the heater filled the silence. My throat felt dry, but I forced the words out. "Tell me," I said, "everything." His hands trembled slightly as he set the photograph on the table between us, smoothing its creased edges. "My mother's name was Claire. She passed away last winter. And on her last night, she told me the truth. That the man who raised me wasn't my father. That he had known, but chose to stay silent, because she begged him to. And that the real man was you. A history teacher named Thomas Collins." I swallowed hard, Evelyn's green eyes staring back at me from his face. "She never said a word to me. Not once." "She couldn't," David said gently. "She told me you were married by the time she found out she was pregnant. She didn't want to ruin your life." Didn't want to interfere. He looked down at his hands. So she carried the secret for 50 years. The weight of it settled on me like a stone wall. Claire's laughter at the fair. The way she'd hugged me goodbye before I left for my first teaching job. I had buried that memory under decades of routine, marriage, fatherhood. And yet, here it was, living and breathing in front of me. David's voice softened. I grew up always feeling different. The man who raised me was harsh, distant. I thought maybe I deserved it. But my mother, she looked at me like I was a gift she couldn't explain. And when I asked about my real father, she always changed the subject. Until the end. I felt my chest tighten. She should have told me. I would have. He shook his head quickly. You had Evelyn. And Anna. She didn't want to steal you away from them. She just wanted me to know before she left this world. The silence stretched again. I stared at him, at the lines of his face, at the way he shifted in the chair like he didn't quite know how to fit into this room, or my life. I should be angry, I said finally, my voice cracking in places I hadn't let it in years. Angry that I didn't know. That I wasn't there for you. Birthdays. First steps. First heartbreaks. God, son, I missed it all. David's eyes glistened, though his jaw stayed firm. I'm not here to blame you. I'm here because I want to know you. And because, he hesitated, then leaned closer. Because you're not alone anymore. Something in me broke then, not in pain, but in release. For weeks I had been suffocating in Brookside Manor, stripped of family, of home, of dignity. And suddenly, here was blood of my blood, flesh of my flesh, telling me I wasn't abandoned after all. I pressed my hand over his. My skin was wrinkled, his strong, but the connection sparked like something ancient and undeniable. David, I said, my voice steadying, if your mother kept you from me out of fear, then I won't waste another second pretending you're not mine. You are my son. His breath caught. His lips parted, and for the first time since walking in, the mask of certainty gave way to something raw. Relief. Dad, he whispered. And for the first time in years, the word didn't feel like a burden. It felt like hope. The room had gone quiet again, the storm of Anna's exit leaving only the low hum of the heater and the soft shuffle of nurses outside in the hall. David sat across from me, his hands clasped tight in his lap, waiting. I let myself look at him, really look. The nose, the jaw, the build, all mine. But it was the eyes that caught me, held me. Green, sharp, almost luminous. Evelyn's eyes. The same eyes that used to catch the morning light when she turned toward me in bed, the same eyes that softened every hard day. For a moment, my heart stuttered. Impossible, I thought. He isn't hers. And then memory filled in the truth. Claire. God, Claire, Evelyn's shadow all through our youth. Best friends, inseparable since girlhood. Same laugh, same stubborn streak, even that same green in their eyes. People used to joke they could have been sisters. I exhaled, my shoulders loosening for the first time all day. That was it. The resemblance wasn't trickery. It was bloodline and memory colliding. Claire's features, Evelyn's spirit, my own reflection, all staring back at me in this man who called me father. I rubbed a hand over my face, trying to steady myself. When I look at you, I said slowly, I see them both. Your mother, and Evelyn. Two women who carried too much, gave too much, and asked for too little in return. David's eyes glistened, but he didn't look away. I leaned forward, my voice low, certain. I failed them, in different ways. I failed you, without even knowing it. But I'll be damned if I let Anna strip us, of everything that's ours. This fight isn't just for me anymore. It's for Evelyn. It's for Claire. And it's for you. My fist tightened on the armrest, blood warming my face, fire replacing the fog of weeks of humiliation. They thought they buried me in this place. But they don't realize they've woken something. I'll do justice, son. For all of us. David sat up straighter, his jaw set. And in that moment, the old man and the son he never knew shared the same look, not grief, not doubt, but resolve. David leaned forward, his voice lowering to a whisper though no one else was in the room. Dad, she doesn't know what this means. I frowned. What do you mean? He tapped the photograph still lying on the table. Legally, I exist. Which means her claim over your estate, the house, everything, isn't hers alone anymore. She can't just sell it and take the money. The moment I prove I'm your son, the entire inheritance shifts. I blinked, the words sinking like stones into my chest. For weeks, I'd been suffocating in Brookside Manor, stripped of dignity, stripped of home. And now, with one truth, one living son I never knew, the scales tipped. She won't see it coming, David continued, his voice steady, almost surgical. She thinks you're locked away, helpless, forgotten. She thinks the house is already hers. But we can stop her. We can do more than stop her. The fire in me flared hotter. We can take everything back. He nodded. Exactly. If she wants a war over what's yours, we'll fight her with the one thing she can't manipulate, blood. My existence changes everything. And if she pushes too far, I'll stand beside you in court. She'll lose the house, the money, her reputation. All of it. I let out a long breath, my chest trembling not with weakness but with something I hadn't felt in years. Power. They thought they'd buried me alive, I said, my voice low, sharp. But they just handed me the one weapon they never saw coming, a son they can't erase. David smiled faintly, grim and certain. Then let's make them regret underestimating you. It was 3 days later when the storm reached Anna. Brookside Manor had one blessing, thin walls. I'd learned quickly that if you lingered near the administrator's office, you could hear every whispered conversation that staff thought went unnoticed. That morning, as I shuffled past with my walking stick, I froze. Anna's voice, sharp, frantic, leaked through the half-open door. You're telling me this stranger has a legal claim? That he can just waltz in and say he's my father's son, and that's it? A man cleared his throat, her lawyer, no doubt. If the paternity test comes back positive, yes. He has full inheritance rights. In fact, depending on your father's will, his share could be equal to yours. Anna's chair scraped against the floor. I pictured her pacing, her face flushing the way it used to when she was caught lying as a child. This is absurd. My father barely knows him. He's nothing. My father chose me. I'm the one who took care of him, I'm the one. She stopped herself, the silence sharp enough to cut glass. I'm the one who put him in a safe place. Safe place. The words dripped poison. The lawyer spoke again, cautious. Regardless of your opinion, the law won't see it that way. If David Collins is proven to be Thomas's son, you can't sell the house without his consent. Any attempt to do so could be challenged. You could even face legal repercussions for misrepresenting the estate. Anna's voice cracked, an ugly mix of rage and panic. Do you have any idea what we've already put into renovations? My husband promised the buyers. She stopped, then hissed, if this gets out, we're ruined. All because of some bastard who crawled out of the woodwork at the worst possible moment. I pressed myself closer to the wall, every nerve alive. She wasn't grieving a loss of family. She was panicking over money. Over image. Over power. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. A small, tight smile. Because Anna was right about one thing, David's arrival was the worst possible moment. For her. For me, it was the miracle she never saw coming. That evening, when the halls of Brookside Manor were quiet and the other residents had retreated to their televisions or their pills, David slipped back into my room. He closed the door carefully, the way a soldier closes a map before battle. I sat on the edge of the bed, Evelyn's photograph in my hand. She knows, I told him. The lawyer spelled it out, you're not a rumor anymore. You're a threat. David pulled up the plastic chair and leaned in. Good. That means we move fast. I studied him for a moment, marveling at the calm in his face. He was 50 years old, but there was a steadiness in him I recognized, the same steadiness I used to carry when I walked into a classroom full of restless teenagers and made them listen. What's our first step? I asked. He laid out the plan with quiet precision. Step 1, the paternity test. We do it on our terms, not hers. Once it's official, the law is on our side. I nodded slowly. Step 2, he continued, we go public. Not with anger, with dignity. People love a story of a forgotten father and a rediscovered son. Anna will paint me as a fraud, but the truth will make her look like the greedy one. And in a town this size, reputation is currency. I felt something stir in me, a flicker of the man I used to be. Not the bent figure Anna had tried to lock away, but the builder, the teacher, the fighter. And step 3? I asked. David's lips curved into a smile that was anything but gentle. Step 3 is the house. We stop her sale cold. And then, when the time is right, we take it back. You walk through your own front door again, not as a man shuffled into a corner, but as the owner. The patriarch. And she'll have no choice but to watch. My hand tightened on the photograph. Evelyn's eyes looked up at me, steady and knowing. For Claire, I whispered. For Evelyn. For us. David nodded. For us. And in that dim, soulless room, surrounded by bleach-stained walls and buzzing fluorescent lights, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day Evelyn first took my hand under that oak tree. I felt alive. 2 days later, David wheeled me into a small clinic downtown. The nurse was brisk, professional, her rubber gloves snapping as she prepared the swabs. To her, it was routine, a simple test, one of hundreds she'd conduct that week. To me, it was everything. I sat still as she brushed the swab inside my cheek, sealing it into a plastic tube with a label bearing my name. David followed, steady as ever, his jaw set as if he were carrying not just the weight of proof but of a lifetime. When it was done, the nurse carried the samples away, leaving us in the hollow quiet of the exam room. The smell of antiseptic clung to the air. And as I stared at the bare walls, my mind drifted somewhere else entirely. I saw my house. Not the gutted, half-renovated shell Anna was turning it into, but the way it used to be. Evelyn in the kitchen, flour on her cheek as she rolled dough for Sunday pie. Little Anna, barefoot, her laughter echoing as she darted through the hallway with a bedsheet tied around her shoulders like a cape. The oak tree outside swayed in the breeze, the swing creaking, the rope fibers warm beneath my calloused hands. I imagined stepping back through that front door. My cane clicking against the hardwood I'd laid myself. Sunlight spilling through the wide windows Evelyn insisted on. My home welcoming me back like a soldier long gone. And this time, not alone. David beside me. A son who had been denied to me for 50 years, now standing in the doorway with me, reclaiming what was ours. I blinked, the vision dissolving into white walls and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. David was watching me, his eyes softer now, less steel and more compassion. "What were you thinking about?" he asked quietly. I managed a small smile. "Home." He nodded once, firmly. "We'll get there." And for the first time in weeks, I believed it. The results were supposed to take a week. 7 days of waiting, pacing the sterile hallways of Brookside Manor, each hour dragging like a stone tied to my chest. On the 4th day, fate handed me another overheard truth. I'd been shuffling toward the vending machine for a bitter cup of coffee when I spotted Anna outside in the parking lot, her back turned, phone pressed tight to her ear. Her husband stood a few feet away, arms crossed, his face pale and drawn. I froze, staying just inside the doorway. Her voice carried through the glass, sharp and urgent. "I don't care how much it costs, those results cannot come back positive. You understand me? This David, whoever he is, he's not taking half of what's mine. Find someone at the lab. Pay them, threaten them, I don't care. Just make it go away." A pause. Then her voice dropped lower, colder. "My father is too old to fight this. He'll accept what I tell him. Just make the paperwork disappear." My pulse hammered against my ribs. For a moment, the world spun, fear, rage, betrayal all pressing down at once. She wasn't just greedy. She was willing to erase the truth itself. I slipped back before she could see me, my coffee forgotten. That night I lay awake in the narrow bed, Evelyn's photograph on the nightstand, staring at the ceiling until dawn. For the first time, doubt gnawed at me. What if she succeeded? What if David was erased as easily as she had erased me? But fate, or justice, doesn't bend forever. 3 days later, David wheeled me into the same clinic. The administrator handed him a sealed envelope. Both samples were processed twice for accuracy, she said with rehearsed neutrality. "You'll find the results inside." Anna was already there, her arms crossed, her face stiff with fake composure. Her husband hovered at her side, eyes darting nervously. David broke the seal, unfolded the paper, and read aloud. "Probability of paternity, 99.98%. The words echoed through the small waiting room like a verdict. Anna's face drained of color. She snatched the paper, scanning it with wide, desperate eyes. This can't be right," she hissed. "There must be a mistake." The administrator's voice cut through her panic, crisp and final. "There is no mistake, Mrs. Whitaker. The results are conclusive." I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding not with fear but with triumph. She had tried to bury me. She had tried to bury David. And yet the truth stood there, undeniable, on a single sheet of paper. For the first time since Evelyn's funeral, I felt the weight of justice shifting back into my hands. That night, back in my room at Brookside Manor, I sat with the envelope on my lap. The paper inside seemed to hum with quiet power. 99.98%. Blood of my blood. Flesh of my flesh. I stared at Evelyn's photograph on the nightstand, her soft smile frozen in time. For years, I had lived in service to others. To her. To Anna. To my students. I had worked double shifts, sacrificed vacations, poured myself into everyone else's future. And now, my daughter had taken that loyalty and twisted it into weakness. She'd locked me away, stripped me of my home, and tried to erase the one truth that could save me. I realized then that I had been blind. I had thought duty was the highest calling, that patience and sacrifice were virtues. But to people like Anna, patience looked like weakness, and sacrifice looked like surrender. I touched the edges of the envelope. No more surrender. David sat across from me, leaning forward in the plastic chair that had become our war table. His eyes glowed in the dim light. The proof is in our hands. Now we use it. I nodded slowly. First, we stop the sale. If Anna thinks she can cash out before the dust settles, she's wrong. You'll file your claim as heir. That'll freeze everything. David's jaw tightened. Already working on it. A lawyer I trust is drafting the paperwork. The house is untouchable until the inheritance is settled. I exhaled. The thought of that oak tree still standing, waiting, gave me strength. Then, I said, we go public. Not with anger. With dignity. People need to see the truth, a daughter trying to bury her father while hiding his son. She'll shriek, she'll call you a fraud, but every word she spits will only paint her uglier. David's lips curved into a grim smile. Her mask won't last long. I looked down at my hands, the skin wrinkled, the veins sharp against the surface. For years, these hands had built, repaired, carried. Now, for the first time, they would fight, not with hammers or textbooks, but with truth. David, I said quietly, I wasted years believing loyalty was enough. I won't waste another second. They wanted me buried. But together, we're going to make them choke on the life they tried to steal. His eyes locked with mine, green and fierce, and I felt Evelyn's spirit in the room, Claire's too, the women who had carried secrets, endured sacrifice, and deserved better. For them, I said. For us, he answered. I wasn't just surviving. I was living again. The nights at Brookside Manor were always the worst. Silence stretched so long it pressed on the chest like weight. But that night, with the envelope tucked safely in my drawer and David sitting across from me, silence felt different. Not oppressive, waiting. He pulled something from his coat pocket, a folded sheet of paper, creased at the corners. He unfolded it carefully, as though it were holy. A photograph, Claire, standing in front of a brick house I didn't recognize. She was older there, her hair streaked with silver, but her smile was unchanged. My mother, David said softly. She made the best of what she had. Even when she kept this secret. He tapped the photo with his finger. She used to tell me stories about you. Not often, just little pieces that slipped through. That you were kind. That you believed in building, not destroying. That you loved history because it gave people dignity. I swallowed hard, my throat tightening. Claire's face in that photo pulled me back 50 years, to warm nights, county fairs, and the reckless laughter of youth. She was right, I whispered. I did love her, not the way I loved Evelyn, but as a friend, constant. I always thought she'd be there, just across the years. I never knew she carried such a burden. David looked at me, his jaw tense. She carried it for both of us. She told me once that she didn't regret me, not for a second. But she did regret the silence. She thought maybe she'd betrayed you, too, by never letting you know. The words cracked something inside me. I rubbed my hand over my face. She didn't betray me. She trusted me too much. Trusted that I'd never turn away. If I'd known, my voice trailed off, the weight of missed decades pressing down. If I'd known, things might have been different. David's hand tightened into a fist. Different or not, we're here now. And I'll be damned if Anna erases both of us. My mother deserved better. Evelyn deserved better. You deserve better. And I'm not leaving until we make it right. His eyes, those green eyes that mirrored both women, locked on mine. And in that moment, I felt the threads of the past weave themselves into something unbreakable. This fight, I said, steady now, isn't just for me. It's for them. For the women who carried us, and for the family they deserve to see thrive. Anna wants to bury the past. We'll make sure it rises and stands taller than she ever imagined. David nodded once. Then we're ready. The silence returned, but now it pulsed with tension, with anticipation. The final clash was coming. And for the first time in years, I welcomed it. The next afternoon, when the sun finally broke through a week of gray skies, I asked David for something I hadn't asked anyone in years. Son, I said, testing the word on my tongue again, softer this time, take me to the oak tree. He understood instantly. No hesitation, no questions. He wheeled me out of Brookside Manor, past the sterile hedges and gravel walks, into the freedom of the world beyond. The air smelled of damp leaves, sharp and alive. When we reached the house, I felt my chest tighten. Half the shutters were gone, the front steps stacked with paint cans and tools. Anna's renovations had already stripped away some of its soul. But standing tall, untouched, was the oak tree. Its branches reached out wide, thick and steady, the rope of the swing still hanging, frayed now, weather-worn, but defiant. David wheeled me to its roots, and I leaned forward, placing my hand on the bark. Rough. Familiar. The same bark I'd leaned against when Evelyn said yes to me. The same bark I'd pressed my palm to when we buried her beneath its shade. For a moment, I closed my eyes, and I could hear it all again, Evelyn's laugh, Anna's squeal as the swing lifted her high, Claire's teasing voice drifting across the yard. Decades collapsed into seconds. When I opened my eyes, David was watching me. This tree, I said, my voice low, is the heart of it all. It's where your mother laughed with me when we were young. It's where I built a life with Evelyn. It's where Anna played before she forgot what family meant. I pressed my palm harder against the bark. It's where I promised I would protect what we built. And I intend to keep that promise, for all of us. David's eyes glistened. He rested his hand on the bark beside mine. Then we fight for this. For everything this tree saw, and everything it still stands for. The wind stirred the branches, the leaves whispering above us like voices from the past. I felt Evelyn there. I felt Claire. And for the first time in years, I felt not like a man abandoned, but like a man standing at the center of something unbroken. I turned to David, my voice steady. Let's finish this. He nodded once, firm. Together. And under the shadow of the oak tree, the bond between father and son was sealed. The public reveal came not in a courtroom, but at a community gathering, the annual Town Heritage Festival. Irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent 38 years teaching history, and now my own was about to be rewritten in front of everyone I'd ever known. David wheeled me up to the stage, the sealed envelope in his hand. The mayor had invited me to say a few words about local legacy, but today, I carried more than words. When the microphone crackled, the crowd grew quiet. I gripped the edges of the podium, the paper trembling slightly in my hand. "My name is Thomas Collins," I began, my voice steady, "and for 72 years, I thought I had one child. My daughter, Anna. But life has a way of keeping secrets. And last week, a truth I never knew walked through the doors of Brookside Manor." I paused. The hush was absolute. "This is David," I said, gesturing to him beside me. "My son. Blood of my blood. Flesh of my flesh. Proven beyond doubt." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Neighbors whispered, eyebrows rose, old students craned their necks. David stood, tall and unflinching, as if he'd carried this moment his whole life. And then, heels clicked on the pavement. A sharp voice cut through the murmurs. "This is a lie." Anna stormed toward the stage, her husband in tow. Her face was flushed, her hair immaculate, but her eyes wild. She snatched the microphone from its stand, her voice shrill. "He's manipulating my father. This man is a stranger, a con artist, here to steal what's rightfully mine. My father isn't well, he's confused, can't you see? They're using him, parading him like a trophy." The crowd stirred, whispers growing louder. Some frowned, some shook their heads. David stepped forward, his voice calm, carrying above her frenzy. "We took the test, Anna. The results are clear. 99.98%. I am his son." Anna's face twisted. "You faked it. Paid someone off. Do you all hear me? He's lying. And my father," she jabbed her finger at me, "is too old to see through it." That was the breaking point. I stepped up to the microphone, my voice cutting through her like a blade. "Old, yes. But not blind. Not deaf. And not dead." The crowd gasped, a ripple of shock and applause breaking out. Anna's mouth opened and closed, her face reddening further. "You buried me alive in that home," I continued, my voice rising. "You stripped me of my house, my dignity, and now you stand here spitting venom at the son I never knew I had. This man is my blood. He is my heir. And he will stand beside me while you watch the empire you tried to steal collapse around you." The crowd erupted, gasps, cheers, mutters. Anna staggered back, her mask cracking, her husband tugging at her arm. "Dad, you don't mean this," she started, but her voice was drowned by the roar of the people who had seen the truth. I turned to David, placing a hand on his shoulder. "This is my son. And together, we will see justice done." The oak tree had stood for decades as witness to my life. Now the whole town had seen what it stood for, truth that could not be buried, blood that could not be erased, and a father and son united against betrayal. Anna's scream carried faintly as she was pulled away, her words lost to the crowd. The battle had begun, but in that moment, I knew the war was already turning. Anna did not disappear after the festival. If anything, she grew louder. Within a week, her voice was on every local radio segment and her face plastered on social media. She painted David as a grifter, a leech, a manipulator who preyed on a vulnerable old man. She called me senile, accused me of being tricked into believing lies. The whispers reached Brookside Manor. Staff looked at me with pity, a few residents muttered about scams. It was her way of trying to bury me a second time, not with silence, but with shame. Then came the papers. A defamation lawsuit, her name bold at the top, her lawyer's arguments dripping with venom. According to her, David and I had tarnished her reputation as a devoted daughter, accused her of theft, and humiliated her in public. She demanded damages, control of the estate, and a formal retraction. David read the documents at my side, his jaw tightening with every line. She's going for the jugular. I nodded slowly. Then we aim for the heart. Our lawyer, an old student of mine named Caroline who had grown into a sharp, unflinching attorney, sat across the table from us. Here's the thing, she said, tapping the papers. Defamation requires lies. And everything you've said so far, backed by proof. She slid out the paternity test results, notarized and certified. David's claim as your son is airtight. That alone destroys half their case. David leaned forward. And the other half? Caroline smiled. We countersue. Elder abuse. Misappropriation of assets. Neglect. Every penny they tried to squeeze from you, every signature they pressured you into, every whisper about the nursing home, it all comes back to bite them. The court hearing stretched for months. Anna's lawyer painted her as a saint, a loving daughter burdened with an ungrateful father and an imposter half-brother. Anna wept on the stand, her crocodile tears falling into rehearsed speeches about sacrifice and devotion. But then came the recordings. The phone call I had overheard, her cold calculation about selling the house, her talk of me as a burden. The parking lot conversation, her attempt to bribe someone to alter the test results. Caroline presented them piece by piece, each one stripping away Anna's mask until the judge himself looked disgusted. David spoke calmly on the stand, recounting his mother's deathbed confession, his lifelong search for the truth, and his desire not for riches, but for acknowledgement. His sincerity cut sharper than any lawyer's argument. When my turn came, I stood, cane in hand, voice steady. I told the court about the house I built, the family I raised, and the daughter who tried to bury me alive. I looked directly at Anna when I said it, and for the first time, she looked away. The verdict was decisive. Anna's defamation case, dismissed. Our countersuit, upheld. She was ordered to repay misappropriated funds, return control of the house, and forfeit her attempts to cut me off from my own estate. The judge's gavel struck, echoing like thunder. And just like that, her empire of lies crumbled. I walked out of that courtroom with David at my side. Not as a man erased. Not as a victim. But as a father, whole again. The house smelled of paint and dust when I first stepped back inside, cane tapping against the hardwood floors I had laid nearly 50 years ago. The renovations were half finished, bare walls, cabinets missing doors, tools scattered across the counters. Anna's dream of a remodel was frozen in place, abandoned like the schemes that had fueled it. But to me, it was beautiful. Because it was mine again. David stood beside me, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. It'll take work, he said, his eyes sweeping the room. But we'll make it home again. I nodded, my throat tightening. Evelyn's presence was everywhere, in the worn banister, in the faint floral wallpaper peeking from under new plaster, in the oak tree visible through the kitchen window. And now, Claire's memory lived here too, woven into the sun she had given me. We walked, slowly, deliberately, from room to room. I showed David the notches carved into the pantry doorframe where I had marked Anna's height each birthday. He touched them gently, as if they were sacred. I led him to the den where Evelyn used to play records on Sunday afternoons. He smiled when I told him how we had once danced there, barefoot, long after Anna had gone to bed. Finally, we stepped outside, beneath the oak tree. Its branches swayed in the breeze, the old swing rope creaking faintly. The ground beneath it was soft, a patch of earth I had tended for decades. Evelyn rested there. Claire's memory lingered there. And now, David stood there, completing the circle. I placed my hand on the bark. This tree has seen it all, I said. My youth, my love, my failures. And now, it sees me rise again. David put his hand beside mine. His voice was steady. It also sees what's next. We stood there in silence, the wind rustling leaves above us like whispers of approval. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of betrayal pressing down. I felt the strength of legacy lifting me up. I turned to my son, pride swelling in my chest. Anna thought she buried me. But this, I gestured to the house, to the oak, to the life that still pulsed here, this is where I begin again. With you. He nodded, eyes glistening, and for the first time since Evelyn's passing, I felt the future open before me, wide and full of possibility. Together, under the oak tree, we walked back toward the house. Not as strangers bound by scandal, but as father and son, carrying the past and building what came next. The house was no longer just memory. It was hope. It was justice. It was home. And this time, I wasn't alone.
Greetings, and thanks for spending your time with us today. I truly hope you enjoyed the video. I want to wish you a peaceful day or a restful evening, wherever you may be. Take care, and we'll see you next time.